I wanted us to gather together tonight to talk about the Safe Sanctuary, to talk about United Parish's policy, but also just to understand a little bit better why we have safe practices. And Sheryl Ellis, the education director, has taken part in Communities of Practice, which is a gathering of directors from all over the state and even lots from New England. And so they bring their best practices together, and you're finding that church practices around safety are changing. And so I'm really grateful that you've gone to those different trainings. And you also bring experience from another church. And so we have already very good policies and safe sanctuary policies we have here at United Parish, and you're adding to that practices from your former churches and also best practices from other places. So you're going to lead a bulk of this time on a PowerPoint that people can watch on camera. And we'll have an opportunity for us to kind of dialogue a little bit after you've shared some of these and raise some questions that we might have. But I wanted to start us off just by kind of telling my own stories about, two stories actually, about churches where I've served and why we even have safe sanctuary policies. And one is from a former church. Every time that I go to serve in a community, I check the sex offender listing in a library or online lately. And so in this former church, I checked and found a level 3 sex offender and learned that the level 3 sex offender was a regular participant in the church. And that was shocking to the church, and it kind of forced us to think about, really to rethink the way that we did a lot of things, because this person roamed freely around lots of different programs that happened outside of worship. You know, folks would figure, well, in worship it's not a big deal, we're all kind of seated together, but it's all that stuff that happens around the edges on Sunday and all those extra things. And I guess I bring that up because I'm thinking that as a church we don't really get to filter out certain folks that we don't want to be in churches. And at the same time we also don't get to assume that everybody that's in the church is equal, that different people have different needs and different problems. And I think for me as a pastor, we talk about the church as the body of Christ, and so everyone is an equal member, and you have to recognize that, okay, if this person is the heart and we all love this person, there's a person who's the big toe, and we have to figure out a way to recognize that those people are going to be in the same building together. You have to have some kind of policy, and that church had to have a policy around how to deal with this level 3 sex offender. So I think we have to have that kind of policy in place before we have a problem. And it's wonderful that we haven't. I don't think that we've had a problem here. But I'll tell you my story when I was a youth minister, and because people will tell me, well, why do we have to have a safe sanctuary policy? You know, we never had this when I was growing up in the church. And when I was a youth minister, I'd been at this church for about 2 years, and my last week there in the church, they decided to throw me a going away party. And I didn't know who the they was. What I found out was I got a call from a junior high school girl in the group who said, "Doug, get dressed for a party. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but I will tell you that you should wear jeans." And that's all. And we had this practice in the church of kidnapping. Like you'd go and kidnap a kid, you know, and you know, you'd pick them up on Saturday morning, the group would kidnap them and they'd bring them to a pancake meal or something like that. So kidnapping was kind of one of the things that people did. It was funny. And so they were kidnapping the pastor. So I get dressed, the doorbell rings, it's about like 6 o'clock. The junior high school girl opens the door, she's my ride. She's driving me. You're rolling your eyes. And, you know, maybe part of the reason for sharing this is so that we can start to kind of, you know, unpack, okay, all the different problems with this. At the time, though, it was kind of the way that we did things. So I jump in the car with her. We drive about 20 minutes to a barn. They are throwing this party in a barn. One of the parents owns a house with a barn on it, and so all the kids were in the barn decorating everything for our party. All the kids were in the barn decorating everything for the party, and this young woman brings me into the party. And so it's me and about 20 kids. And some of the kids had brought their girlfriends and their boyfriends, and so through the evening we're all kind of playing together, playing some games, talking together. And then the thing is over with. She's my ride home. And so the party is done. She's driving me home, but she stops. And she pulls into a lake. She parks. And she says, she just starts talking to me about how difficult it's going to be when I leave. And I think I'm 19, she's 17.
Oh, God.
And as we're sitting there together, I'm thinking, oh, this is not good. This is not good. What do I say? You know, I don't want to be mean and tell her that, you know, you've got to drive me home now, or send a helicopter. And then as she's talking, she says, I just feel so close to you that I could kiss you.
Okay.
And I think my response was something like, well, you've already told me more than a kiss ever could. You know, it's time for us to go home. And so she drives me home. And I keep that in the back of my head because most of ministry from adults' perspective is well-intentioned, and the feelings that a child have are generally coming from a good place. But we have been in the church long enough to know that there are lots of leaders who may not have the purest of intentions. So they might have pure intentions, but they might not be able to resist temptation the way that I did that evening. So you don't put an adult in a compromising situation with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you have kids that may not always be completely honest about what happened in a situation. So once upon a time, I think we just assumed that, you know, all adults were good intentioned and all kids have good intentions. But now we've learned, and especially because of the abuses in Boston, we've learned very clearly that that's not the case. So it's a new world, and my hope is that we can find some way to still preserve some of that love and that sweetness and that innocence, but to make sure that we set things up so that I'm not at risk as an adult and a child isn't at risk. And so I think that's why it's important for us to just talk together and to learn what other churches are doing to make sure that we're keeping both sides safe. So I appreciate you kind of taking us through. I'll show slides for you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. The first set of slides I was going to show you is what our policy currently is with UPA. We have a policy that exists for everybody's safety. We accept everybody, as Doug said, but we have to make sure we keep everybody safe also, not just the children. And we keep everybody safe. So these are the current policies. We follow reasonable safety measures in the selection and recruitment of volunteer workers. I'll go into what we do to make that the safest we can. We implement prudent operating procedures in all church programs and events. That includes who drives, who has access to information, etc. And I'll share that. We conform our facilities to meet reasonable safety standards to reduce risk of harm or injury, which means we do safety checks of the buildings, making sure that the chairs, things don't fall apart. We get new tables if we need, if we need to. And we provide for workers adequate training, which this is part of, so that they can understand our policies, procedures, and the methodology that we use to do this. So we have to provide adequate supervision and support for workers as they're in the ministry. People are trying to help people. They're trying to help children, they're trying to help young adults, or they're trying to help adults that need ministry. At the same time, they have to feel safe, like you were saying. You're put in a position that not only could you be at risk, and she could be at risk, but even if nothing happened, somebody could say something happened, and so therefore you're putting a situation out there. So we have to provide adequate supervision for that. And then we have to educate our parents, because even if all the Board of Ed and Doug and I and Michelle all follow these procedures, if parents don't know what's going on, it's only half.
Yeah, they still supplied the barn in this case. You know,
yes.
Some parents said, okay, it's fine, 20 kids in my barn with Doug, no problem.
So they need to know, everybody needs to know.
Right.
We have a clearly defined procedure for reporting instances. I'm going to be able to talk tonight. We have a policy if somebody's injured. We have backup people. We have a roamer that goes around. Also, if something reports abuse, we have a form that I complete and I notify right away. That's required by Massachusetts law, so I have something to do that.
So even and our Sunday school teachers are mandated reporters. I mean, if they were to
Yes.
hear that there was some kind of harm at home or a hint of that, then they would have to follow up.
Right, now they can report to me if they're not comfortable reporting it to the state, but they have to report it to either me or the state, because they're required by law to do that. So, and then we should review these policies, and this is the thing I brought to Doug's attention. This policy is dated 2008
For United Parish?
for the United Parish.
Okay.
2008 is too long. It should be reviewed yearly and updated every 2 or 3 years. So it should have somebody else looking at it besides you and I.
Okay.
So, and then we have a special set of procedures for our Sunday school and nursery. Nursery has a set of procedures so that we make sure that we don't put the adults that are taking care of the children at risk. We always have 2 babysitters in the room. No diaper changing, things that, see to it that there is no...
So nursery care workers don't change diapers, that's
No,
always
they don't.
parents that do that?
Yes, they have to come down and do that.
Yeah.
So,
Is it, some people ask too that, once upon a time we had teenagers that would do babysitting. And is it a policy of ours not to do that? I mean, that's something that I changed here, just it was a practical thing, because I could count on people that I was paying, some of the adults that I was paying, but I'm not personally opposed to having teenagers watch over our young kids in the nursery with an adult care worker there.
I don't have a problem with that, except for that I really prefer our young people to be in Bible study or CPC. If I have a choice, if we're talking somebody from the outside, I'm not comfortable with them necessarily being in charge of our children without Corey checks and things like that. And a lot of things aren't found in young teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not a member of the church and they haven't been here for a lot of years, and they're only like 17 or 16 years old, nothing will show up on a Corey check usually that could be dangerous. So I'm a little uncomfortable with that. But I can work with it if that's the way we end up.
So we would just have to write into the policy that
Yes.
we could have, say, high school kids
Yes.
care for a certain age kid, like you wouldn't have a high schooler monitor the middle schoolers necessarily, because there has to be
5 years.
5 years, and is that in our policy already?
No, but it is in the normal UCC policy. It has to be 5 years.
Okay, so 5-year age difference. So
Yes.
in my case, when I'm with this girl,
Yes.
that's already problematic.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Should
Methodist,
never
I don't
hide,
know. I don't know what the one is for Methodist, but for UCC, you have to have a 5-year spread from a teacher or an assistant and the youth that they're supervising.
Okay.
Okay, next one.
So that's so your Sunday school, nursery, and church
Yeah.
meetings. Okay.
Okay. Now, everybody who works with children, youth, or vulnerable adults, we have those too, have to complete a CORI. I'm currently the CORI check person. However, I've just found out in my community of practice, I'm not supposed to make that decision. And you're not supposed to make the decision on whether the people pass or don't pass. It's supposed to be a totally separate group of people. And we've luckily been very fortunate in who we've checked, but we need to get those people lined up so that we can make sure we have a set.
Could this be the same group of people that kind of update and monitor our
Yes.
safe sanctuary policy?
Very much, yes.
Okay.
The only thing is, myself and you and I can decide if we don't want them with children. In other words, we can say, if there's a child abuse, sex abuse, something like that, we can, between us, say we would prefer them not be with children. But
We prefer who not be with children. Then.
people who had a CORI check that came back with,
So it might be better to have people on that board who don't have children. No, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
okay, if we run the CORI check and it comes back with theft or burglary.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so if it's not an immediate threat to this particular relationship, I see. Okay.
But if then we may not want them driving kids, or we may not want them, there's a
Right.
set of things we may not
Right.
want them to do.
Right.
But if there's some certain things we can decide as administrators, that there are some things that doesn't matter what the group says,
Okay.
these things won't pass, so.
Right, okay.
Okay,
On?
okay. No leader should be alone one-on-one with a child or youth or vulnerable adult in an isolated or closed situation. Now, if we don't have 2 adults in a room, we have a roamer and the doors must stay open. You cannot close the doors to a room and only have 1 adult in there. And the UCC policy is, although it's not in this one, that the adult cannot be related to the children. If there's only one, if there's two adults, the two adults have to be unrelated. And
The two adults have to be related, not to the children. I mean, a parent could be watching the kids, but you're talking about...
No, they can't be related to the children in the room.
Really?
The reason for that is because they can make the kids say something, in other words, to the parent and the child could get together and say something didn't happen to another child, because that's their parent.
Wow.
So it's supposed to be an unrelated adult.
If there's going to be one adult.
Yeah. Yes.
But if there are two, maybe it might not...
It's not, if there's two, there's no problem.
Wow.
But they both can't, I mean, if they both can't be related. You can't have both people related. But if there's only one adult, even with a roamer, it can't be somebody who has a child.
Okay. Okay.
So, I didn't know that either until
Okay.
the things you learn when you go to classes.
Okay.
The UPA, we try to keep our counts down, and we've been very fortunate to have enough teachers to do that. The only time that becomes a little bit problematic is when you take the youth on a trip and you don't get enough volunteers. That then becomes, we have to make sure that we make sure the ratios are good, and we've been doing very good with that so far.
Do we have a guideline for what the ratio should be? I'm thinking if youth counselors, they want to go hiking Monadnock, and you think you're going to have 20 kids, and I guess that's one thing that I was thinking about in that story with the girl who took me out. We had parents probably had no idea how many kids were going to be there, and so now these days you always want to know the who, what, how many. So say we have 20 kids that are going to go hike Mount Monadnock. What's a number of adults that we should
It
have?
depends on age group, and there's an actual template that they use, and I can get that for you, and we can have a copy.
Okay, so if any youth counselor wants to try to figure that out,
Yes.
they should go to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a copy of that. We can have young people help us between 12 and 18, but they have to have an adult in the room, and the adult has to agree to have the children in the room.
Okay.
And then parents or guardians must be informed of the details, and they must give written participation
And permission for children.
to be taken away from the church. That's when you take them up for hiking or whatever. That's why we need those forms filled out.
Okay, written permission to be taken off-site.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you take a group of kids off, that's why we have to have those forms. Even if the kids are with their parents in the car, they're going on our youth activity.
So
need to have.
can you say why that's important?
Well, it's a couple of reasons. One, say a father takes a child and a mother didn't know the child was going. Okay? Then they could come back and say, I didn't give you permission. If you have a form that says, I have permission from a legal guardian to take the child.
Okay, so that...
Covers the church. Another instance is what if the parent and the child are going on the trip and then the father leaves or the mother leaves and the child's there and you don't have any forms. You don't have allergy forms like you were discussing before. You don't know what's going on with the children. That's too dangerous. So you need the form to make sure that you can answer the questions if something was to happen.
Okay, so this should be every time there's a trip. Those
Every
forms
time.
should always accompany you on the trip too,
Right.
right? You have to have them physically in the car with you.
Yes.
But here we've tended to create kind of a master form.
Yeah, we have a master form for quick things.
Okay.
That basically says, as a parent, here's my insurance information, here's my contact information, and you're allowed to go. And then what you do is the parents should just initial each time you're getting ready to leave, that nothing has changed. Everything remains the same.
Okay.
And they initial it and go.
So you always have those forms out. The parents can initial it, but
Right.
you always have to have a form for each child for every off-campus event.
Yes.
Okay.
And we should have written permission for all kids inside the church if the parents don't stay in the building. But that's hard to control. So, but you're supposed to. You're giving
We
your
may have
best-
questions about all this practically in a second. We'll get to that. So, okay.
Okay.
Should we roll on?
Yeah. Okay. The children and the youth are under supervision while they are in Sunday school. When they are no longer under official child care event, the parents are expected to provide the supervision. The church cannot be responsible until the parents leave the church. The church is only responsible for them during the event, activity, or Sunday school thing they're doing.
Okay.
And the parents need to know that. They need to understand that concept because you can't come to us and say, where's my child? I mean, yes, you can, we'll help you look, but, but the child should be under the parent supervision at the time the classes end.
Have there been occasions here where that's been a problem? I mean, way back, maybe not so recently, but have there been times where that created some kind of a problem?
There have been a couple of different instances. I mean, even I would say, I think even recently, again, parents looking to leave and kids are playing hide and go seek and they're hiding really well, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've heard of that. So that's kind of a minor thing. I know at one point the door to the pipes in the organ above, behind the altar, that door was not always locked, didn't have a lock on it, so
Yeah.
the kids could get out there and like sit on the ledge looking over. I'm not sure.
Which could have been horrible.
Could have been horrible, which is why the bell tower is locked now, or has been for the last 6 or 8 years, something like that.
Mhm.
And you need the key each time you're gonna go up to ring the bell.
Yeah.
There was also an instance a long time ago of kids just playing around down here, 2 boys and a girl, and the boys kind of deciding, like the girl saying, okay, like 2nd grade or something like this, okay, I'm gonna leave now, and the boys saying, we're not gonna let you leave.
Mm.
And it probably was a span of 5 or however many minutes, an eternity for the girl.
Right, right.
And it was not necessarily, there was no real malice, just like, oh, we kind of have power, there's one doorway, and so that was one thing that happened a long time ago. So.
A couple of things I've seen just in my short tenure here, some of the kids will get a little bit over happy and they'll bump into some of our elderly people. And that's really not fair for them, and it's not fair for the child either. Neither one of those people should have been put in a position where something serious could have happened.
And to your point, the staff can't monitor those hallways all the time, so
Yeah.
we're doing other sorts of
Yes.
things, so we just need for parents or grandparents to,
Right.
guardians to watch.
Yeah. So, or they could, once it's under the parent supervision, they can ask an older sibling to be in charge. They have the ability to do that. We do not have the ability to. So. Okay. Now, this is something that's not in the UPA guidelines, but it's something that they strongly suggest we use for transportation of people in the church. Of course, they have to have a valid driver's license. By the way, this does not require you to have the 2 adult rule in the car, as long as there's more than 2 children that are not related to you in the car. In other words, there's safety in numbers and the person's driving, so they're busy.
Yeah.
But they can not have more than 2 moving violations in the past year. They have to be Corey checked, of course, everybody who deals with the children. They cannot carry more people than can be secured in the seatbelts. And that's a big thing, because a lot of people, they stick their seatbelts in the back because they don't use the back seats, and then kids don't buckle,
Yeah.
and they have to. And they cannot text or use a cell phone while driving. Even though texting's okay for adults in Massachusetts, well, I mean, not text, cell phone use
Are
is
legal.
It's
legal.
not at all.
But you have the responsibility of other people's children. And so that's not a good mix. So this is the things they recommend for people who are providing transportation.
It's interesting because we, with the teenagers, we rely on parents.
Uh-huh.
And parents rely on parents too, and we never check to see whether you have moving violations or whatever, so it's hard practically to imagine how you get in or out of that pool. I've never checked keys. Maybe it's time.
Also, another thing that I didn't put on here that's kind of important is to remember that the adults have to approve the person driving their child. So in other words, you can't say, okay, everybody's going to go drive with X,
Right.
and a mother doesn't know who their child's driving with.
I had that issue recently. So Gracie my daughter does this other group, and on, I think during February vacation, let's go play laser tag, and including a group, probably 3 or 4 cars, 15 kids, something like that, including a senior driving. And they're gonna leave at 2:30, about 1 o'clock, starts to snow. And they're driving up the highway, whatever. And so my question was, who else is driving? And I'm sorry, but you're not in her car. You're in you know, the mom's car, which is a minivan, who knows how to drive it, you know.
And you were lucky that she let you know about this, right?
Well, I asked specifically, it was, you know, it's not like it's offered up, but I asked specifically, you know, once it started to snow, but even then I should have thought of it beforehand, because this was not just around the corner going for pizza where they had done that before. This was driving, you know, at least a half an hour away.
Well, up in our town, one of Tyler's co-students that he goes to school with had hockey practice in the morning. And he slid off the road, and normally he takes 3 of his hockey teammates, and he didn't this time because they weren't ready, and he needed to get on the ice. And he died.
That's terrible.
So you can be very good, you can be not so good, but the parents have to allow whoever's driving their children.
Well, it's just so that everybody knows where
Right.
everybody is and what's
Mhm.
happening. But also, you're right, you want some level of control.
Yes. Also, when I go through all of these things, everything should be checked with your insurance company. I don't know who UPA's insurance is. I don't know if it's through the Methodist or if it's through UCC, but we should check and see what they require. Because they may require a copy of the insurance, they may require some other things too.
You might have to be 25.
Yeah.
No, but honestly,
Right?
I think
It's
it's true, 25 years
You
old.
might be, I don't know what the rules are because it's based on your insurance.
But did it say there too that no youth drive other youth? That's
No youth are never, you have to be courted and you have to be over the 5-year
Age difference.
age difference
If you're
anyway.
considered a driver, I mean, that's just being a driver, not being,
Right.
Yeah,
You-
I assume that if you were in high school, you couldn't drive any other teams for any other.
I don't know what
well, probably
Massachusetts.
not a church event?
Right. That's what I mean. I mean, so you know.
Okay.
I haven't heard, I'd have to see, your rules don't say that right now, so,
Okay.
okay. Electronic communication has become a big issue lately, okay? We have so many different ways of talking to our youth and to our kids and to other adults. And the problem is something can be misconstrued that is said via text or Twitter or any number of ways that you send something. So any kind of communication with any youth or child or vulnerable adult has to be sent to more than one person. It has to be sent to either a group or to somebody else connected with the church. For instance, Katie, if you were a mentor and you wanted a one-to-one conversation with yours, CC'd or copied to Doug, unless it's something that is personally quiet, you're trying to keep it, then you CC the parent.
If it's texting, but for
Right.
calling, I mean, because this
yeah.
comes up too. I think
Yeah.
some mentors now would say, well, you know, back in the day, you used to be able just to reach out and call and say, how are you doing? But you're saying that even the call is not necessarily appropriate.
It's
now.
not necessary,
Isn't appropriate.
it isn't not appropriate.
Okay.
Direct calling, unless you have a feeling that there is enough people who can either hear it or know what's being said.
Mhm.
And this is just for both people's safety. The reason for it this is what's happened, and I just wanted to give a quick example. So a pastor called one of the youth that missed Sunday school and said, I missed you.
Ah.
And the child, and it was a simple enough, it was very innocent. The child told his parent, it was a girl and it was a guy pastor, told the parent, the pastor called me on my phone and said he misses me. Goes into a whole nother kettle of fish. And it creates a problem that you don't need to have. If you could have just called the parent and said,
Yeah.
I'm just concerned, how's she doing? If you could relate to her that we missed her at youth group or whatever, so that the parent's in the loop.
So we have this ideal, I think, that when a teenager is struggling and they can't talk to their parent, then here's another person they can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems like that's a value that it's hard to lose. You know, that
Yes.
sometimes kids want to keep some things private, and so there's a reason that they haven't told their parents.
Right.
So, you know, what do we do in that case? I mean, is it acceptable? Is it ever acceptable in any kind of a crisis or?
Well, I have a policy that another church uses. And basically they say you're ministering with God. So even though you want to be as safe as you can, you also want to do what you think is right with God. So if you feel that this is a time where you need to be one-on-one with the person, you will.
You do it prayerfully.
You do it prayerfully, and you do it with God's guidance, and
Okay.
you go
that's
forward.
helpful.
So. Okay,
So you also, I think when we talked about this earlier, we talked about Facebook.
yes.
And what the requirements
Oh, you're
are.
not supposed to, you cannot friend anybody on their direct. In other words, they can't friend Doug. They can friend UPA, and they can friend youth group, but they cannot friend Doug or Sheryl.
Nor should I try to friend one of them.
Right, exactly. We're not supposed, and Twitter, I don't know how that works, but you're not supposed to do that either. I don't
Twitter
use
sounds bad, don't do it.
I don't know anything about Twitter, so I'm really kind of at a loss. But you can't, the direct communication is the thing you gotta watch, because like I said, that was a very simple, innocent thing that pastor was doing, and it caused, they basically had to report to, whoever ordains them and explain.
It's a good example. Yeah.
So, and we don't want anybody in trouble. Okay, so we encourage that the adults send their texts or emails to a group rather than to individuals. And it eliminates the one-on-one electronic communication. So we say encourage. Like you said, there's times when they want to, the mentor and the child are trying to make a good connection.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be very careful. Keeping copies, keeping records, making sure everybody.
Let me ask you if because this came up with one of the mentors, can they talk to parents? And I mean, if they were to go to the parent and say, I'm going to be out of town for 3 months at a time, 4 months at a time, could I check in with your daughter? This is because the pairing for us is always going to be male to male, female to female.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if that would make sense. That allows the connection to go.
I
on,
would
but-
get it in writing from them if you were going
From
to
the
do it,
parents?
from the parent saying it was okay. And then I would keep copies of the communication. If they're out of town, they'll have emails, so they'll have copies of the communication.
Not texting.
Texting, I don't know, unless.
And so call wouldn't work then. I mean, in that case.
Well, again, if you're ministering with God, not just, hello, how you doing, but you have a connection, an intent that you want to do, and it's something that's really important, then you need to
Okay.
keep that in. See, we're trying to do a balancing act here, and it's
Right.
really difficult in these times, because it would be nice to just say, everybody's good, like you said, everybody's good, and we don't have to worry about anything, and then something comes and has a problem, so. Okay. This is obvious, but it needs to be put in somebody's policy. It's not in our policy right now. But adults and youth, both, cannot transmit any content that's illicit, unsavory, abusive, pornographic, discriminatory, harassing, or disrespectful. The issue is some people have a different level of disrespectful. So that's why if you CC it to more than one person, you're covered. Okay? And especially with minors and when you're involved with ministry activities. So. Except in an emergency, you're not supposed to transmit any personal information about the youth over electronically. Sometimes you need to have the forms and you forgot one so you can PDF it. That's an emergency. Pictures and things like that, we have to have permission, and then even then we don't put them together. In other words, email addresses we get on a different page than photographs. We don't keep the photographs and the email and the name all on the same page. If you ever notice anything I post on the bulletin board, if there's any names, there's no last name, and they're not attached to any particular picture. So you're not able to marry up the two.
So, I mean, thinking for classes, a lot of people there's this impulse there's something cute is happening in a class, and so you snap a picture of the kids, and then it's really cute, it has your kid in it too, so you want to post it on your Facebook page, and you say names of the kids, so it's a problem. We've taken the picture, especially if we don't have consent to
Right.
from the parents to share, but even if we do have consent, we still have to be careful.
Putting other
Not to-
children's. I can give you another example of that. A parent was a non-custodial parent, brought their daughter to church. We tape the services. The child went up for communion. They saw the child, had the police at the person's door. They never gave permission to take the child. So we need to make sure we make the connection. If we have anybody who says no, they can't have their picture taken, that class never gets their picture taken here. But I haven't received anybody who said no this year.
Not for anything particular that you have done.
Yes.
Okay.
And I make sure, like I said, I don't add phone numbers or names, full names to anything. And like, when we did the Living Nativity, if we would have got the paper here, we would have only allowed them to take first names. We would not have given them last names.
Okay.
That's just, you do not want them to make that connection.
Which makes me think that our directory needs to be secure, right? So when we pass it out on Sundays when Michelle has updated it and it's just there, we
Yeah,
don't
it
want
has to
that to
be,
be.
it has to be in hands, I mean, yeah, we have to be very selective. It can't just
Yes.
sit on a table somewhere.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, even with the e-blast that we send out, you know, people are frustrated that we don't list full names of folks under prayer concerns.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, recently I listed the names of the full names of the candidates for our confirmation or during to adulthood, and I'm thinking that wasn't a good idea. So-
Well, you didn't have a picture that matches it, or.
No,
an-
Well,
but I have their
still-
names, though, they're full
Yes.
names.
No, right,
Right.
and it's the same thing that this town in particular still has, for all of their higher level soccer teams, they have the kids' last names on them. Our towns, a lot of towns have done away with that. You know, it used to be that you've reached a level where you've got your name on the back of your
Oh.
jersey.
Interesting.
It's off. You do
Okay.
not have it anymore, and I'm
Right.
surprised that they still have it. Yeah.
I was surprised when I got the book that it listed the parents and their children's names, their children's ages, and their address and phone number all together in the book.
The book.
The book I got when I first started, it was
Well, the
the,
directory doesn't have ages.
No, right, but it does have families listed with
Right.
children underneath it, which
Families
is,
So you'd
with
have-
children, and then there's our pictorial directories from, the last
Yeah.
one was 4.
I'd be concerned putting them, because they can put the last name with it, because the first name's there, and then the last name's usually one of the two parents.
but isn't there a way that we could secure those things so that, you know, so that we can still use those as tools, but that we're highly selective about who gets to see it? I wonder if that would help us. You know, we have to, all of this, we have to
Right.
write into a policy that's
Right.
coherent that we all agree to, but
Right.
the
And I know we're
the
being-
principle of it is you think of worst case scenarios and you try to find a way to prevent.
The worst case scenario that they tell us about in community practice is your children have been coming to the church for 3 years. They've seen this gentleman in the back of the church for 3 years. You knew he was a sex offender, but you don't announce it to anybody because that's not your job. You know, you don't go around telling people. They see this person, and this person has a book, has the child's name, has their phone number, and walks up to him and says, "Hi, Sandy, I'm a friend of your mom, such and such, and I've come to take you for a ride." They've got all the pieces to do something that they shouldn't do. Again, we'll keep the children with us until Sunday school is over, but then the children are wherever they're
Okay.
located, so. We just
Awful
try to be
example,
careful.
but helpful.
We're crossing our fingers that never has. But like we were saying in a meeting, we never want it to happen, but we don't want to be the person who has to pick up the phone and say, "I don't know where your son or daughter is. I have no idea." That's not the call I want to make. And then we discourage youth workers and students to use cell phones during ministry, except in an emergency, to contact a parent or guardian. That's something we're going to be talking about, but it's intended so that they're not paying attention to their surroundings. You're on a ski slope. Somebody's on their phone, somebody bumps into them, they weren't paying attention. You know, it's just an attention thing. And this is my end. Just remember, we're doing this for our children and for our adults that are at risk. We're not doing this because we want to put all these extra boundaries on anybody. We're just trying to make it safe. So, and that's it.
So I'm wondering if there's some things, I've been kind of asking questions along the way, and I don't know if there are other questions that we need to ask or things we need to clarify.
Did you have anything, Katie?
Well, I neglected to have my notes ready or something to write with at the beginning of this, so there might be some that come back up. There are just a couple of more specific things when I was starting to think about, just following up on minor things, like again, we'll need forms for every activity that take kids out of here.
Mhm.
I've sent forms with my kids early on, and then the day of, they don't have them, kind of thing. So I would think we want to make sure, if we know what our program is for a period of time, have those handed out ahead of time, and we have them, you know, in hand or have them available on the website so
Mhm.
that parents can download them, you know, whenever.
I
they
usually
need
put a
them.
package together for Doug and all together and all in order, like the
Right.
ski trip, he
Yeah.
has everything
Right,
there.
right, right.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
notify anybody who's missing any, they'll either fax them to me or whatever, but I don't go on all the trips where I'm not in
Okay.
charge of all. So if you want to put me in charge of collecting all the forms for that, that's fine, I can.
And then again, taking a page from
Yes.
that other group, you know, a binder per, you know, whatever,
Mhm.
especially for an overnight.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, you know, which includes the health, you know,
Yes.
every time.
And I was thinking, we're not even talking here about allergies, that's a whole different layer.
Yes.
Right,
That's folded
that's
into this
something else,
too.
Yes.
yeah.
But that's not part of your safe sanctuary policy, that's,
Okay.
but I mean, it's just not written in it.
Right.
So I was using the current one because there's not a new one, so.
But I wonder, I mean, that makes sense though. We have
Yes.
some way of.
Right.
We have two sets of forms. They can either put it on the registration for when they put their children in the Sunday school, or we have a new form that's on the website that they can actually upload a picture of their child and what they're allergic to, so that we can have the two together. Nobody's used that form yet, at least I haven't seen one, so.
Yeah. And then the only other things, I mean, some of the things that you've talked about, the interaction of the mentor or an advisor with youth. And so I'm thinking even just going forward, you know, in the near future, where are our mentors going to meet with the confirmands on Sundays? One-on-one somewhere where they'll have a little bit of privacy.
But
But
they
not
need
too
to
much.
be,
But
but
not
they
too
have to
much.
be in public.
Right.
They do have to
Some
be in
privacy,
public.
and we're lucky here that we have large enough space where people can find a corner together, where people
Yeah.
can keep a set of eyes on them. You know, I can stand over next to, you know, the stained glass over here, and we can talk and be private enough.
Right, right.
But I think it's important because there's this strong temptation. It's, oh, she's crying right now, and I don't want, you know, she's embarrassed, so
Well, that's the
let's
thing,
go
is
back in
that,
this room.
right, you want to be in the conference room so that, right, so we can have some real private time,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know, to discuss whatever is going on, but yet, you know, that violates all these policies, so.
That's the thing. It's a balancing act, and again, they keep saying, remember you're ministering with God. So
Yeah.
common sense, but also remember that you're not doing this, you know, just to complain or not like the thing.
Right.
So to work with, we'll work with whatever, so.
The only other thing I thought of with, again, the confirmand and the mentor, again, with the sharing of some kind of information or a conversation that needs to be told to somebody else, that maybe even at the beginning of the relationship, there's talk about who is our one backup adult that you will let me share this information with, or we can bring into a conversation.
That would be
That we can bring into a
wonderful.
conversation. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that, you know.
If we think we're right there, then, you know, we just go ahead and set it up so that this person is around.
Right,
and-
right, and that way it's agreed upon before an emotional something has
Yes.
come up.
That is a very, very good
You can
idea.
even come up with a clever name for the
Right.
person, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds wonderful. Sounds like a really good idea. That is really good, because
yeah.
I always worry about, because they won't talk to you if you're gonna be talking to their parents
Well,
or
not,
whatever.
not necessarily, and
Yeah.
to some extent, maybe it's okay if the mentor does talk to the parents without the child there,
Yeah.
kind of, you know, like some of that, but
Yes.
again, you know, just trying to figure that out. But
That's a
again,
good point,
if that's established before,
Right.
and if you say that everybody's doing it, we
Mhm.
don't expect that we're going to, you know, have this situation where you're gonna tell me that you tried smoking cigarettes and.
Right.
One thing the mentors have to be very, very aware of, though, if they suspect abuse, even if they think they're going to lose the relationship, they have to report it. That's not a, well, I don't want to hurt them or upset them.
Well, what about so even if you suspect cutting, and I mean, one thing is abuse at home and another is self-abuse.
Self-abuse.
Both need to be reported. Even if all that happens is it gets recorded someplace and we know that it's going on, but the problem is if you don't report it and then something more serious happens,
Yeah.
we have an issue, so.
Right. One conversation we had, and I don't know if you have more that you wanted to ask, but one conversation we had earlier was about, you know, a mentor talked about remembering a day when, you know, you
Yeah.
put your arm around, and it's such a natural thing for a lot of us. And so I was even thinking, yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right, Sheryl?
And I said,
Well,
no.
that is problematic.
It is
because not everybody
problematic.
understands
Right.
what exactly it means, and or somebody looking from afar that sees that happen
Yes.
might misunderstand. So
Or the
that-
child may report it and the parent misconstrue it. Like, if the youth was crying about something, and we just came up and talked to them and went like this, but they went and told their parent, not meaning it was bad, just, oh, I was so upset, and then Doug came up and he touched my arm, or he
Or even worse,
touched me.
he touched
He
me.
touched
Well, or
me.
like, yeah,
Yeah, he touched me and I feel so much better now. You're gonna have parents.
So our basic rule is that for Sunday school teachers, for shepherds, that we don't try to console by arms around,
Right.
essentially, right? I mean,
Right.
Hands, this kind of, I mean, do we have expectations of what touch is okay, or what's welcome and what's not welcome?
For the most part, you shouldn't touch without them coming to you. In other words, little kids will come and grab you and hug you and stuff, and you can't really push them away. That's just mean, and it's not. And so that's okay. But a tap like this, which I do quite a bit just to remind people that they're supposed to be paying attention rather than shouting. It's just easier to go like this. But I have 4 or 5 other adults in the room that are seeing exactly what's going on.
Okay.
We do not have a one-on-one any touching.
Okay.
If there's just one adult and one child, there's no touching at all.
Okay.
And bathrooms, you stay outside. You don't go inside.
There was one other thing that I remembered back from our first lock-in, and that was the whole not being in this room or any room with the kids without another adult being here.
Yes.
So I felt there was a lot of running around that night of I have to step out because, so I was thinking, trying to interpret what you were saying, that the youth group is in here and I'm coming in to do something while Doug is getting the ice cream or something like that. I had been thinking that that would be okay, and you were reminding me it wasn't, so I was stepping out, but isn't it okay?
You're
It's a
supposed
group
to-
of kids.
Yes, but was there 2 adults? There should be 2 adults if you have a group. I came in here one time and saw teens all sitting in each other's laps in here. And I came in, and of course, I'm the busybody. I say, okay, everybody has to, sit on their own chair. And I'll sit right here and we'll watch the movie. and not being mean about it, but this is not the place for sitting on top of each other.
Okay, so that's one thing, and the other is this real question about how fluid things can be,
Yes.
how difficult it is to try to
Right, so does that
get out of the
violate?
room if there are kids in here.
Right,
because
so
you-
was that violating something? Like he was on a task and was going to come right back in, in a period of 3 or 5 minutes.
But that's like a roamer then.
Right.
And now you're in
Okay.
here, that's fine, because
Okay.
the roamer is gonna be
So I
coming in now.
remember a whole bunch of trying to step out,
Yeah,
and
and I
get into the
think
kitchen.
one of the things that I was most aware of, and that was as a challenge, kids like the idea of sleeping in different small groups here, here.
Mhm.
And my first thought was, okay, you don't want just all kids alone in a room, but you would rather that than to have one adult in there with those kids.
Right, you don't
So-
want one adult.
So, okay, kids can sleep in the Norton room, high school kids the girls can sleep in there, and the adult, what we've been doing is adults sleep out in a kind of a common area.
Okay,
Or if a bunch of kids are in one large space, then at least 2 adults are there.
Yes.
together.
and the bad thing about this particular room is even though there's a glass right there, there's not really an easy line of sight.
Yeah.
So even if you left that door open, it wouldn't
Doesn't
be,
matter.
so you'd need to be roaming in and out.
Yeah.
You don't have to be here 100% of the time, especially with youth, because youth are used to being on their own anyway. But you need to have that expectation that you're not going to be gone for 45 minutes to an hour, that you're
Right.
going to be back in just a few minutes. So.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll just wrap it up. I was thinking when we talked earlier.